Hakodate Tropical Botanical Garden Center is across the bay from Mount Hakodate and has approximately 300 species and 3,000 tropical plants planted in the glass-enclosed greenhouse. In the outdoor facility, you can see cute monkeys soaking in the hot springs during the winter months and on special occasions and holidays. A footpath is located in a small circular gazebo across from Monkey Mountain. For local residents, the center offers regular classes, and for visitors, seasonal events are held, including Christmas concerts, attracting large numbers of visitors. The strictly Cistercian Trappistine Monastery of Our Lady of the Angels was founded in 1898 as the first female contemplative monastery in Japan. It stands quietly on a hill facing Mount Hakodate and the city center. At the time of its establishment, it was housed in a former orphanage built on 70 hectares of land purchased by Bishop André Berlioz of the Paris Foreign Mission Society in 1893. In 1903, the wooden monastery collapsed in one night, and 2 years later, part of the two-story brick main building facade was completed. The main building front wing and church, which were completed by 1913, were destroyed in a fire in 1925. The one that still stands today was rebuilt in 1927, with donations from Pope Pius XI and donations from each monastery. The design is a mix of Gothic and Romanesque, such as the brick exterior walls and semicircular arch windows. The nuns live a communal life based on the three pillars of their daily routine: prayer, labor, and sacred reading. Madalena cakes and cookies are manufactured as a profitable business and are popular souvenirs when visiting the monastery. In addition to entering the front garden, you can also tour the reference room attached to the store, which introduces life inside the monastery and the history of the monastery. Fort Goryokaku is a large, star-shaped, Western-style citadel, which was built in the last years of the Edo period for the defense of Hakodate against the imperialist threat posed by the Western powers. A few years later, the fort became the site of a civil war between an army of the shogunate and the superior troops of the newly established Meiji government. After the fort lost its military importance, it became a public park in the 1910s. Over 1,000 cherry trees were planted along its moats, making it one of Hokkaido's best cherry blossom spots. The peak of the blooming season usually takes place around early May. In the center of the fort stands the former magistrate office, from where the officers of the shogunate used to administer the island of Hokkaido. The original building was demolished after the fall of the shogunate in 1871, but the city meticulously reconstructed a part of the complex and opened it to the public in 2010. For a bird's view of the fortress, access the observation deck of the nearby Goryokaku Tower. The 107-meter-tall tower replaced its 60-meter-tall predecessor in 2006. Hijikata Toshizo was born in Tokyo in 1835 into the family of a wealthy farmer. In 1863, he was recruited into a band of ronin, masterless swordsmen, to escort the shogun going to Kyoto. At that time, terrorism and assassinations between factions and the shogunate were rampant in Japan, so Hijikata's group evolved into the famous Shinsengumis to maintain the public peace of Kyoto. Thus, Toshizo had finally become a real samurai, even eventually becoming the Shinsengumi's second-in-command. Power was restored to the emperor in 1867, but the Shinsengumi and some shogunate forces rebelled and fighting erupted in Kyoto. The rebels, overpowered and losing, retreated to Tokyo, Aizu, Sendai, and Hakodate. Toshizo met and befriended in Sendai the vice-governor of the shogunate navy, Takeaki Inomoto. After merging forces, they made their way to Hakodate and overtook Goryokaku fort. In 1868, the war began. Toshizo, as one of Inomoto's men, led 3,000 troops against the imperial forces. Outgunned and demoralized after devastating losses, on May 11th, 4 days before Inomoto's last rebel forces surrendered, Toshizo boldly left Goryokaku fort to back up his comrades and was shot. He died just 34 years young. This restored early 20th century streetcar recreates the first trams operating in Hokkaido out of Hakodate in 1913. The stylish streetcar makes 3 runs a day on Saturdays, Sundays, and national holidays between April and October. Its name in Japanese, Haikarigo, refers to the high collars of Western fashion imported in the Meiji era, 1868 to 1912, which ended up as a catch-all phrase for fancy and modern in this period. The red and white exterior transports you back in time, while the nostalgic interior, with its wooden walls and rattan straps, offers a unique photo opportunity. The ticket stub makes a perfect souvenir of your Haikarigo trip, so make sure to take it home with you. Shomyoji Temple is a Buddhist temple that belongs to the Jodo sect and is one of the oldest temples in the area, established during the Edo era and relocated to its current site in the early Meiji era after a fire. The temple is notable for having housed the French and British consulates after Hakodate opened its port to Western countries. The main temple was built using reinforced concrete in 1929. The temple also has memorial monuments for Kahei Takataya, Masamichi Kono, and the Tokugawa supporters who lost their lives here in the final battle with the Meiji government army. The original building of Jitsugyoji Temple is said to have been a thatched hut built by a Buddhist priest named Saiken in 1655. The temple was moved to Tomiokacho in 1714 and finally to its present location in 1881 after the Big Fire of 1879. The current building was completed in 1918 after another series of destructive fires. When Commodore Perry and his crew arrived in Hakodate in 1854, locals were surprised to see them taking photographs in a makeshift studio in Jitsugyoji Temple. The next year, when the French warship Civil called at the port, the temple was used to house and treat a number of ill sailors. In 1858, the first Russian consul arrived in Hakodate and was based here until the official consulate building was completed. When the Civil War ended in 1869, the bodies of fallen shogunate warriors remained scattered all over the town, because people were afraid of being punished by the government if they took care of them. The chief priest of the Jitsugyoji Temple, in cooperation with Kumakichi Yanagawa, a boss of gangsters in Hakodate, collected the corpses and buried them at this temple. The Funami branch of the Higoshihonganji Temple was built in 1904 to manage the graveyard of the main temple in Motomachi. The present branch temple was completed after reconstruction in 1926. Among the many people buried here is Takeda Minoko, the wife of Takeda Arasaburo, a professor of the Institute of Western Studies established in Hakodate in 1856. He designed and built the Goryokaku Pentagonal Fort and the Benten Pier. Minoko was a sister of Kojima Matajiro, the mayor and shop owner who made written record of the visit of Commodore Perry to Japan. Minoko died at the age of 27, only 8 years after she married Arasaburo. Suzuki Toyoharu, a ship designer and carpenter who built Hakodate Maru, the first Japanese Western-style ship, is also buried here. He died in 1880 at the age of 27. Hakodate's first Russian consul Goshkevich took up his post in September 1858 as a result of the Japan-Russia Peace and Amity Treaty of 1854. The original Russian consulate was established on the site of the Russian Orthodox Church in Motomachi in 1860, however, it was destroyed by a fire which started in the adjacent English consulate. Work on a new consulate commenced in 1903 at the present location, but wasn't completed until 1906, due to the Russo-Japanese War. Unfortunately, it soon was destroyed by the Big Fire of August 1907. Construction of the existing building was completed at the end of the following year. In 1964, the city bought the building from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It served as a youth lodging and training center until July 1996 and is currently not in use. The city is raising funds to renovate the building for future tourism use. The oldest remaining Buddhist temple in Hakodate, Koryuji, was founded in 1633 in Kamedamura as the last branch of the Soto sect's Hogenji temple in Matsumi. In 1706, it was moved to Bentencho due to damage from a flood. When Hakodate port was first opened to the world, it was used as lodging for some Russian consulate officials in cooperation with Jitsugyoji Temple. During the Hakodate War in 1869, it served as a branch of the city hospital and many injured were treated there. After being burned down repeatedly by a series of fires, which swept uncontrolled through the town, it was finally relocated in 1879. In 1900, the present main hall was completed, and 10 years later, its solemn mountain gate with elaborately carved sculpture was completed. This is a precious wooden temple built at the end of Meiji era, and all the prominent construction work was done by master craftsmen from Ekigo. In 1870, this cemetery was officially recognized as a Russian cemetery. At present, there are 43 graves including those of 25 Russian warship crew members. Mrs. Goshkevich, wife of the first Russian consul in Hakodate, and Vizarian Sartov, a chanter at the church attached to the consulate and later a teacher at the national school, are also buried here. Many Russians who have passed away in Hakodate now find their final resting place in this cemetery. The cemetery for foreigners, which used to be called Yamasadamari, was the original cemetery for sailors who died during their port call at Hakodate, and for foreign residents of the city. Gravestones for sailors of Commodore Perry's fleet and the first British fleet were placed here back in 1854 and 1855 respectively. In addition, according to some records, French sailors who died of illness were buried here after the ship had to be rushed into port despite no diplomatic relations with Japan at the time. By the year 1870, Britain and Russia already had their own cemeteries here. Following a new demand for Catholic cemeteries, Hokkaido settlers decided to lend France a part of the area as a Catholic cemetery. It is currently a cemetery for the Congregation of the Sisters of St. Paul Delaware Chartres. In 1876 the cemetery for Chinese people, now called the Chinese Graveyard, became part of the larger foreign cemetery.